everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cleaning and Cocktails. You guys know the deal. You know what we do here. We like to have fun. I bring on guests from the cleaning industry. A lot of it is cleaning business owners, as you guys have seen, but today I have a special guest who is a subject matter expert in HR, labor. You guys, the industry knows how important labor is for the cleaning business owner and the cleaning industry. So Claudia's got a lot of gems she's going to share with us. Thank you. Let me open it up, Claudia.
Thank you.
Say cheers, and thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time right now.
For having me, and what an opportunity to actually drink and work at the same time. Not always advised in the HR world, but you know, you gotta do. You know,
No.
so we gotta make exceptions. So cheers.
Yes, cheers. So everybody who's listening and watching, we got Claudia St in here with us. She's the CEO and founder, owner of Affinity Group. But I'm going to let her take it away because my mom is our director of HR, Claudia. So HR is very important to us. We're a big culture company, you know that. But let's just jump into the fact of, you know, did you plan on launching an HR company? Were you in HR first? How did because it's very important, but how does one launch an HR company?
Get into it. Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because whenever I say, you know, hey, I'm in HR, and you know what the best thing of HR is? The look is always like, I can't even imagine what the best thing of HR is. Is there anything good about HR? So, I mean, HR is a pretty broad field. I've been in it my whole life. But there's HR and then there's HR. Like there are the policies and the procedures and the compliance and all that stuff. That's not my thing. I'm not really good at that. I'm not the best rule follower out there. But I love people, and people are fascinating to me, and I think they're a constant source of joy and delight and struggle and angst, and I love kind of all of that. But actually, we had an association, just like the SCAI, which is how we know each other, the Building Service Contractors Association, and they knew that whoever was doing HR at their member companies was probably not an HR person. Like your mom is probably not certified in HR, maybe not trained in HR, but good at it because she's good at the people side.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we pretty much put together this offering as a member benefit, and we've been working with the members of the building service and janitorial and landscaping and security and a lot of these a lot of employees companies for 15 years. So this is our 15th year.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and we're actually going to rebrand. So by the time this comes out, I don't know when this is coming out, we will soon no longer be Affinity HR Group. We will be the Workplace Advisors.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah, nobody actually likes HR, so we're taking it out of our name.
Yeah.
We're just Workplace Advisors.
Like we were saying before we jumped on, like I'm sure, you know, again, everybody in the cleaning industry knows how important labor is, and yeah, it's not. Maybe many people may not look at HR as fun, right? But it's a necessity. It's a must.
Absolutely.
And there's so much I want to jump into, and we're going to jump around. So, because I think there's so much to talk about. Where, you know, HR isn't just one solution. There are so many facets of HR, and I want to start with that first, Claudia. Is like as cleaning small cleaning company owners, you tend to wear the HR hat when you in the beginning, right? You're wearing all the hats.
Absolutely.
Could you share, because majority of the listeners and the people watching, Claudia, are smaller businesses, right? So they're the business owner that's in the business, working in the business, trying to get out of it, right? And working on it. What advice do you have in the early years and early going that a business owner, because they have to be HR, what should they be thinking about as for the HR department? Because that's the whole point of when I said there's different facets, like there really is, right? There's different roles within HR. Can you take us through the journey of what we should be doing as small business owners first, to then how do we start to build out on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think starting out, it's all about recruiting. This is a very, very heavy labor intensive industry. And so given the fact that a lot of the scheduling and a lot of the way the businesses are being done, a lot of those positions have high turnover, much higher turnover than other industries historically. So obviously you need that sort of recruiting, and then you need that boots on the ground HR compliance. Do you have your I-9s filled out correctly? Do you have your employee files filled out correctly? Do you have all of the necessary federal and state labor law posters and administering pay and benefits correctly? So that's all sort of what I would call sort of the HR compliance, getting people in the door, processing them, getting that process right. Your employee handbooks, your policies, your procedures. Those are all sort of fundamental and solid good practices that a business of any size at any level needs to have. I think once you get those basics down, once you get sort of the basic HR function down, the critical thing is having a good people strategy. And a good people strategy is basically making sure that your core values are defined correctly and that employees know that they belong, that they matter, that their lives are being alleviated, that they have somebody who cares about them at work, that they have a home, that what they want in life can be achieved through working with these businesses. Those don't necessarily fall with the same person. So the person who's doing the compliance stuff and doing all of the policies and procedures, they are putting everything in a box and making sure that that box is correct. The people side, they're thinking outside of the box. They're being a workplace that has a sense of belonging, that has a sense of commitment to employees, where there really is like a, you matter to me and I matter to you. And those aren't necessarily the same people. So as you grow, the dedication, and I think we're going to talk about it, but the dedication to really being committed to your employees as an essential, valuable piece of what you do, that usually comes next and is probably the most important piece for your peers and in your industry.
Yeah, Claudia, so that's a great point, because like I said earlier, right, my mom, she's our HR director, but even she says it too, and she sees that what you just said is what she sees. She's like, Rick, man, we have hundreds of employees, and it's so much work and focus to make sure we're following all the guidelines, and she's like, I don't have, in the beginning she would say too, like, I don't have the time to also do that part, right? And then recruiting, like, to us, recruiting is a whole nother role, right? Like, knowing how to recruit, knowing how to do filing and the paperwork and administrative are two totally different things.
Absolutely.
And then the people side, like you said, like, I love the rebranding. I think it makes sense, workplace advisors, because it's the workplace environment that we're dealing with, right? Like, and if you get it right early, this is where I think, by accident, I don't know if it was by accident or on purpose, like I think we got it right from our personal experiences. We always had this people manager, people ops, right? Like chief happy officer, like some of these tech companies have it, right? Like, again, it's the people, man. So like, do you see that as a trend? Like the ones that are able to scale and grow, it's because they have a core?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And and Ricky, just knowing you and your team over the years, you have a core, right? Who you are, you're like, I'm here for you. Like I am a real person, and that's the sort of thing, that's where the cultural center lives, and you can't fake it. Like you can't fake caring, you can't fake empathy, you can't fake that. And employees get it. Like they see if your walk and your talk are not consistent, if what you say you want for them and what you actually do for them and provide to them aren't consistent, they have a radar. They're like, yeah, I don't matter to you. And I think the most important thing is that if you really care about them, they will feel it, they will see it, they will know it. And the challenge, I think, as you grow, so as you get more successful, as you take on more buildings and properties, and as you end up hiring more people and get more mid-level supervisors, the sort of the front line managerial and supervisory staff, that's your weakest link. Because that's why the core values are so important, because somebody like you, Ricky, you've got that core. But how do you define it and articulate it in a way that your frontline supervisors are walking that walk and talking that talk? Because that's your weakest link, is your frontline supervisors. Because people don't quit their jobs. People quit their frontline supervisors, and that's That's the weakest link in all of these organizations.
Oh, Claudia, you just confirmed what we've been talking internally, right? Like, again, everybody from the outside looking in may say, "Oh man, Rick, your company's awesome, your brand is great, this and that," but we're always still growing. There's growing pains, right? And what you just said is exactly what we've all realized is when you grow to a point now, your middle management has to share the message as well. And
Yeah.
it's been the toughest part for us is the front line is, it's getting, the gap is growing between the touch points that you have, because you have so much front line, small office, small core. How do you convey the message? I'll give you an example that just worked for us. Literally, like 2 days ago, I just sent the email out because, again, I'm living what you're talking about. I was like, man, we have 16 values in our core values. I was like, that's too many. Like, that's way too many. How does one memorize all those? So we're going back to the drawing board. I sent an email out company-wide, and it sucks because the values are on our wall, so we're going to have to do some repainting on in our office wall. So, but I said to everybody, like, I love what we stand for, you guys. Everybody, this is to everybody in the company. I'm asking everybody for 4 to 5. Here's, grit is what we stand for. We're gritty, but like, everybody, please share 4 to 5 words that describe X, Y, Z, and I give them a couple sentences, Claudia, and you'd be amazed. I was amazed with the responses, right? Like, everybody's perception or perspective, like this, like the same word was used by everybody. So one of those words is like, bam, we are for sure that word because everybody said it. But talk about engagement, and they were included in the values versus in the beginning, it's what we came up with. It was instinct, right? Like, here, this is what we believe in, which is okay. But
honesty,
I would tell everybody, do that exercise because it has opened up my eyes to what the team now thinks of us, right?
Let me share with you. So the exercise says when we're hired to do this, so as consultants, we do almost exactly the same thing. So we ask for maybe 10 to 15 members of your company. Newest people, the newest on team, the oldest, the highest level, lowest level, and everything in between, like a good cross section of your company. And we ask them to sit down by themselves and write down what they believe. So I believe that ... right? I believe that all people have inherent integrity. I believe that family is the most important thing. They write down their own individual beliefs, and then you bring them together in groups of 2 or 3, and then, like, do you have similar ones? Can you wordsmith them? And then you eventually bring it back to the whole group. What do you all share as a belief? Those are your core values. They are the personal beliefs of the people that work for you. And what's great about them is that those are not aspirational, because aspirational core values are by definition something that's out of reach that I aspire for, but I may not show up like that. But if I'm an employee and I see on the wall some core values and I see my supervisor or manager or owner not showing up that way because they're aspirational, I immediately think, well, these are baloney. I don't buy into it. So what you just did is so important, and I want in businesses to revisit all of their core values. If they do anything this year, I want them to revisit their core values, because they're going to matter more in the coming years than ever before.
Now, let me ask you this too. So we're doing that, Claudia, and what I want to do is create like a pocket card. Right, so the front is our mission and our vision, and the back is our values.
Yep.
Because one thing that I've realized too, again, this is all shared experience, right? Like, this is what I'm going through, and I think a lot of business owners go through this, so this is going to be helpful for them. My dream is everybody can like finish each other's sentences, right? Or like, if you are asked, like, man, what's Rosalato's mission? Like, you may not know at first, or remember at first, or memorize it, but like, I gotta believe if it's a pocket card that could fit in your wallet, like, you can take it out and read it all the time. Or I'm trying to challenge the team too, is like, everybody gets upset. There's those moments that you want to react, and it's like, again, we have a tough industry. It's not, we're getting complaints, we don't get compliments. So let's turn a complaint into an opportunity to get better, right? Look at it that way. Right. And it's like, what would we do? Like, what would Jesus do? But like, how should I respond before I respond? Let me look at the values. Yeah. All right, cool. I'm going to show up passionate today, because I am upset, but I'm not going to show my emotions. So I have you heard of that, or do you have any other ideas or tips? Like, how can, because remember, it's the front line. That you said it again.
Yeah.
I'm honest to the point that I know many of our front line may not understand our values right now, and it sucks, but it is what it is.
Right. Well, it's funny because there's a convenience store gas station right up the road from where I live here, and they have their core values on their wall, and they are sell cool stuff, be nice, have fun. That's it. Like
Easy.
Easy.
You can live that every day.
I remember it, and I remember absolutely nothing. But making them simple, but making them not aspirational, making them who you are. And the other thing is like that whole idea of being nice, right? If somebody's not being nice, you'll know you have the right core values because you can use them and say, dude, that wasn't nice. And it's a core value of ours to be nice. And if you can't pull that together, you don't belong here. And if it's to
and it's not personal, right? It's just
it's that. Well, that's why those like, what do you believe? Starting from actual beliefs, nobody believes in customer service. I'm sorry, I mean, I don't believe in customer service. I mean, I believe in it, of course, but it's not something that motivates me. But caring for my employees more than I care about anything else. That's a belief. That's something that
versus I see what you mean. Like customer service may be something you strive to provide, but that's not a value, right? Like I see what you mean.
It's an actual, because those things you can hire toward. You can and like, do these resonate with you? If not, maybe you don't fit here, and you can definitely fire toward it. You can definitely, you can talk to a client and say, look, you yelled at one of our employees, and our core value is to be nice, and we're going to be nice to your employees, but we need you to be nice to. I mean,
they got to respect that. They'll respect that. Yeah.
They will respect it. Whereas if you say integrity, what does that even really mean? Like, what does showing up with integrity is doing the right thing when no one's watching, right?
Say it that way versus the word integrity. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's almost like values. Oh man, I see. My mom's listening. She's gonna see. I told you so. That's how she actually expressed some of the values, was like in a phrase versus the word. She used it as a phrase.
Yeah. And what you could do is take the words that you've got, bring together a representative group and say, what does this mean for you? Put words to this. And then you can actually articulate it in a way that it actually shows up, that it really matters.
Okay. So we're going to keep it going with, I know you have some probably some industry stats or very industry related items, but before we go into that, because I see it in the background and I made myself a note, you have written a book, Transforming Teams.
I have written a book.
So can you share with the team, and again, we'll have a link of where to find the book, but first of all, what made you want to write the book, and what is a cliff note of what Transforming Teams is about?
So actually, Transforming Teams, I wrote this for frontline managers. It's like a little fable, a little vignette, very easy to read. But there's some fundamental things that when I come in and I work with teams, I see that are oftentimes the source of conflict, that are challenges, and typically it's between sales and operations, or sales and customer service. Those are two very close functioning teams that oftentimes just fight with one another. So it's basically a sort of a story that uses the tools that I and my team use when we come in to help teams collaborate more effectively on understanding different behavioral styles, understanding how to navigate conflict, pay attention to the stories you're telling yourself, listen with empathy, just sort of the key soft skills that we encourage most businesses to impart on their supervisors and managers, because again, those are the most important positions in all of our organizations, because that's the experience that your employees are actually having, and that's where a lot of the development needs to exist. So it's a resource. It's a book that's filled not only with sort of the story, but also all of the resources and all of the learning behind each of the concepts that we put in the story.
Okay, awesome. Well, I know I'm going to get a copy. I know you're sending it. I'll send you my address. No problem.
I will send me your address. I will send it to you, and I'm hoping to have an update. It's a little dated. It's 7 years old. And my publisher required that it be a certain length and a certain price, and I'm like,
Okay.
that is not fun. I want it to be free. I want to give it away. So
Yeah.
we may have a rebrand coming out, but in the meantime, it's there. It's very
All right. So, and I want to keep going on the front line because I just keep thinking of things I want to talk about too. Is so, Claudia, how? Because I got to believe when you're coaching people through, and because this is, again, many of the business owners in the cleaning industry, we didn't go to school to run a cleaning company, and not that it's a unique situation, but I feel like, especially commercial cleaning, when we're not brick and mortar, so like our office staff is our core team within the business, right? If you've grown to that size and you have a team at the office,
Right.
but majority of our people are in the field after hours on their own.
Right.
No supervision, right? The supervisor is supervising, but like there is no brick and mortar. So
Yeah.
that I'm 100% with you on like the supervisor. If you get it right, that's how you scale, right? And that's how you grow, and
Right.
it's an extension of your business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that the critical thing, it usually the folks that are in this industry, especially if you've got crews that are working at night and on weekend, it's a part-time job. It's usually their second job, maybe their third job. So they're by design not going to be with you forever unless they've carved it out as part of their life and it satisfies something, and they will. But that's why there's a lot of turnover in this industry, because a lot of them, it's a means to get by. It's a means to an end financially, or just in a whatever familial situation that they find themselves in. But I think it's one of the most important thing, I think, is making sure that we know what your employees want and need, and they feel seen. And that I'm sure you've talked about the Dream Manager on this show before.
Oh, yeah. I just interviewed Mary's episode is coming out next week.
Excellent.
Yes.
I mean, that's the kind of caring, and that's the kind of home that requires intention. And I keep sort of alluding to the future, but the future's going to be a challenge for all of us, especially heavily labor. It's going to be hard. And the days of churn and burn, where like you lost an employee, just plug another one in, and you plug another one in, those are going away. Because we really don't, people are like, when is it going to get back to normal before COVID? It's back. It's normal. Yeah. This is the new normal.
This is the new norm.
This is the new normal, and it's just going to get worse. It's just going to get harder. As those baby boomers retire, Gen Z is a much smaller population, and we are not allowing legal immigration in to fill the gap. We are down 8 million workers since COVID, and we're not even grow by 8 million by the end of the decade. So we're kind of hosed when it comes to this. So the critical thing, I think, for all businesses, but especially this one, you have to change your mindset in how you view employees. They're not a resource. They're not like you need them. They are the most important thing you have, because they're going to be increasingly expensive, and they're going to be increasingly difficult to get. So a commitment to really understanding and valuing and appreciating employees and training those frontline supervisors, that's where you didn't go to school for building service, contracting. You probably didn't go to school because you wanted to be managing people, right?
Yeah.
But too bad, that's your job for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, I feel like I'm a glorified recruiter for the company. That's my job.
Yeah, well, you are, and you're the mascot and the emotional and cultural center, and it's just going to be more and more important going forward. It just is, because there will always be somebody out there looking to hire your folks and giving them an easier, better life. It's hard work. It's hard work.
You paint a scary but opportunistic picture, because I see opportunity there, right, for us to get better, and I see opportunity for us to really focus on our companies. Again, anybody, when I joke in the office too, I'm like, we're not a cleaning company, right? We are not a cleaning company. We are a platform, right? We are a home for people to grow in a career, right? So I heard this one time, I forgot, I got stuck on Instagram for like 20 minutes, scrolling through the reels. But and this one was it made so much sense. I think it was by Patrick Bet David. And he was like, doers, you want to find a doer, right? Like I've caught myself and when we're doing some like recruiting huddle ups, either for Route, Roselato, all the companies, and it's always the same thing is, man, I want to find somebody who's proactive. I want to find somebody who gets shit done. I want to find somebody who's just a doer. And I come across this reel and he's like, doers are not looking for a job. Like doers have a job already, or they're passionate about something. So they are the hardest people to recruit. So you've got to have them want to find you. So is that something you see, Claudia, now? Like, or is there tips you can give business owners? Like, what is it that we can do, especially in the cleaning industry, like to stand out, other than and benefits, right? Because I feel like those are no-brainers. You should be offering that. Is there any other new innovative ideas or things that you think of?
Well, I can tell you that everybody's looking for innovation. And we also see in certain industries, you've got people going in not only to like the vocational school or high school, going into middle school, going into elementary school, create pathways to getting people interested in an industry. This isn't one of those. You're going to be hard. This is not one of those. So you're competing against all those other industries at the very, very entry level, like with little people. So what's going to make the difference is really understanding what it is that your employees want. Asking your employees, why are you here? And what makes you excited to be here? How do we make this a better experience for you? How do we promote what it is that we do? How do we create meaning and community and authentically care? And it's going to be different for each and every one of you. I know BSCs, I mean, I love them, they're our clients, but they view their employees as expendable. And I think the ones that are like, you are our family and I care about you and your dad worked for me and you're working for me and I hope your kid works for us. And it's really that it gets right back to that cultural norm. It's the core values. It's reaching out to them where they are. It's doing your best to give your employees, and this is sort of the dream manager, but giving your employees everything they want so that they don't need you anymore. And the minute they leave you because they don't need you anymore, and they leave you loving you, you know you've done the right thing. Because there will always be somebody who wants to follow in that. There's always going to be somebody who needs that, who needs a second chance, who needs another opportunity. I mean, I don't think that there's everybody's been struggling with this tight labor market, right? You've already tapped your returning vets and your ex-cons and your folks on, your recent and new immigrant. Like, there's no special pool of untapped people. It gets down to how you care about them and think about them and treat them. It really is. And I think there is an opportunity, because I think a lot of businesses do care and do the right thing, but they don't articulate it. They don't communicate it. They don't market it. They're not selling themselves. They aren't really promoting what they do and how they do it regularly to their employees. And I think those are real opportunities. But it basically, Ricky, it becomes your most important job.
Yeah.
And I've had a conversation. I had a conversation with a BSC, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and they'd grown significantly, and they were psyched because they'd gone into all these new market areas, but they couldn't staff them. And so now they have these new awesome new contracts. They can't staff them, so their existing employees are having to cover both of them. They're literally losing money now that they've brought these new contracts on, because they're having to pay overtime. And they're like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, maybe you got to say no. I mean, I don't want to be the one to say that, but you have to realize if you're burning out your employees, it's not a sustainable business model.
It's not sustainable. No, I've been there, felt that. I feel like you're talking about me right there. Like we've had that happen a couple times. Like, yeah. You're right, and you have to hit the pause button because it's going back to the roots. If the team got you there, if you burn them out, it's going to hurt the company. It's going to hurt the team.
And this company in particular, I think they grew like 5 or 7 million. Like it was a big number that they grew, but they were actually less profitable than they had before they took that contract on, because they were paying overtime.
Yeah.
And and then they were losing folks because they were burned out on overtime. I mean, I think it's really valuing, like truly valuing employees, because they are a diminishing and expensive resource.
Yes.
I know.
So,
lots of fun.
So, Claudia, let's keep talking about the BSC market too. It's like, so when did you, I mean, did you have any experience within the BSC market that's why you've grown to love this like type of client, or how did you get into the BSC space?
So I got into the BSC space because I was working with associations, and so it was from association to association referral. But I have to say, BSCAI is our #1 association. We get most of our highest level of client engagement is BSCAI. And you know, I think it's because they have so many employees, and they really struggle with making sure that employees, I mean, there's a compliance side, but it's making sure that employees who may otherwise be considered marginal, a marginal type of employee within the workforce, feels valued, feels recognized, knows that they are the most important person, knows that they are a cultural home. And I think this association is just a community of people that really compete fiercely. There is no doubt you guys are like in fisticuffs on the street. Like you guys you're fighting for your contracts, but you're fighting a good fight. And there are a lot of enterprises out there that are in this space that are not legit, that are having shady deals, and they're treating their employees like independent contractors, and they're keeping, you know, the unemployment and the taxes, and you know, not good characters.
For sure.
These are people that really care about their employees, and I absolutely, you guys are an awesome. I don't know.
We're the best.
I like you guys a lot. You're the best.
BSCs are the best.
They are. You are.
So on that note, we're going to take a quick break so we can hear a word from our sponsor. All right.
All right.
So we'll be right back.
Okay, sounds good.
We're back. Thank you so much. Claudia, we're going to keep this going. We were just off on the break talking about diversity. So I think I want to talk to you about two things then. Diversity in the workplace, right? I mean, the word gets thrown around all the time. I just like to say, put together good people that just do the job, right? Whether you're man, woman, whatever color you are, are you a high performer? That's how I build my teams. But what have you seen? We'll go deeper into that. So yeah, what have you seen in the workplace environment that you're excited about, or you see a shift happening?
Yeah. So you know, I have a love-hate relationship with DEI, diversity and inclusion, equity and inclusion, and I'm certified in DEI. I've done a lot of work. I've worked with businesses to sort of set the programs up and really get them going. But the reality of it is, if you look over the last 15 years, and these programs have been around for quite a long time. I mean, they kind of popped into the spotlight within the last 4 or 5 years, but they, within the HR community, have definitely been around for much longer than that. They're not moving the needle. Like if you look and you see, you know, women, the proportion of women at entry-level jobs is like 48%, and by the time you get to the C-suite, they're like 12%. and even poorer representation for women and people of color. And it just, there's a challenge there. And I was giving a presentation to the Battery Council, so the people that make lead batteries. There's an assessment for everything, literally. And somebody was asking me about Gen Z, and they said, what does Gen Z mean when they talk about diversity? Because this youngest generation, Gen Z, is approximately 10 to 25 years old. So they're the ones that are coming in, and they are the most diverse, most authentic and individual expressionistic population that we've ever seen. And the baby boomers are retiring. And this young generation is really pushing for diversity. They want to work in a place that's diverse. And so I was giving this presentation at the Battery Council, and this guy asked me, what does Gen Z mean when they talk about diversity? And, you know, I have 2 Gen Z kids, and what they don't mean is like, do you have a quota? Do you have a box that you have checked? Like, what is your outreach so that you can increase your diversity by X%? That doesn't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
What it means to them is, do people who look like them or who look very different from them, is yours a place where everybody can feel like they belong? Can you create a space of belonging? No matter what the gender, racial, sexual orientation, whatever profile, no matter what is there, who is there, how they're there, can they belong? And Gen Z wants to see a workplace where somebody who says, you know, you're not like me and I don't like you, where that's not acceptable. Mm-hmm. Where you're holding people accountable for creating both a sense of belonging and for eroding that sense of belonging. And again, that gets back to your core values. You treat people well. You play nice. Be nice.
Be nice.
Be nice. Be kind. That will satisfy a lot of the diversity and equity. I mean, it makes sense.
No, it does. It really does. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. Like it's not a box that you can check. I mean, I think you got to live it and breathe it. Like you said too, it's easy. I don't know. People just throw the word out so much. Even us, we're like an MBE, and I'll tell you, I never lead with that though, because I do fall back to if I'm a great business and a partner, that's why you're going to choose me, not because I'm a minority-owned business. But I tell you, it's nice to have access to it though, and an opportunity, right? But at the end of the day, we have to be good business leaders, and you have to be a good company. You're not going to, get a shot and then you're going to fail. You weren't ready for that too. So, I want to go deeper on
creating opportunities also, because a lot of times, a lot of people feel that if you open the room up a little bit wider and you bring another chair in, that somebody's lost something. By expanding the table, somebody's getting less.
No,
It doesn't have to be that way.
No, it's the other way. Is that by adding the chairs, you just added more room for growth, or opportunity.
Exactly. And the diversity of perspective is so powerful that you can get into groupthink, and having somebody there to challenge your thinking and challenge your perspective. It's not always comfortable. It's not always easy, but it almost always is rewarding because you're seeing something from a different perspective that can be helpful.
Oh yeah. So Claudia, let's talk, because I think people will benefit from this too. I know I've tried to do some research, but I could probably find the answer right here with you. Is so HR, again, it's a very general term, but like, what are like, I've heard generalist, I've heard an assistant, I've heard there's many terms within an HR, but like, what consists of a good HR department? When let's just say, now let's talk about middle-sized companies that are ready for scale and growth. Like, what are some of those functions that a company should have in their HR department?
Yes, so that's a great question. So fundamentally, you start with an HR generalist. So this would be somebody who's processing your papers, who's setting you up on your payroll, who's making sure that you've signed your employee handbook, and when they term, they get all their documentation. Just the papers in, the pro forma stuff, sort of the standard stuff. This this is where compliance meets the road. Like, this is like, did you get the right stuff in? Did you get the right stuff out? So very compliance oriented. That's sort of an assistant HR or a generalist HR. Then you would get into sort of a managerial level. And typically once you get to that next level, they're able to handle some of the employee relations issues. So I had this challenge, I need a leave request, managing family leave, navigating some of the, I need this special benefit, I need this time off, we have this conflict. So they're really beginning to start to interact at a manager level. Then when we get to director level and up, that's where you start to get strategic. And that's where you start to say, where is this business going? How are our people fitting into it? How are we creating pathways for success, professional pathways? How are we addressing what we can see are going to be workforce shortages? How do we create some of these engagement programs? So the first two are really kind of lights on, compliance oriented. Let's look at the standards and just keep the lights, keep everything in order. And then the next is how do we become that fundamental, essential business partner to the leadership of this organization so that our workforce is lockstep in step with where you're going and ready and prepared for that growth as you get there. And that latter part is lacking the most in this industry. Most of the people, even really, really large BSCs that I've worked with, like with thousands and thousands of employees, their HR people still are kind of like payroll, right? They're administrative. They're not that strategic. How are we doing a workforce alignment? I've seen only a handful of BSCs that really are strategic in that regard. But they oftentimes will hire us, right? So we can come in and do a needs assessment and say, let's be your strategic consultant from a workforce perspective. But if it's really for a sustained growth, a lot of that is boots on the ground, and you really need that strategic thinking, like a VP of people or a VP of human engagement or a VP of happiness and family or whatever soft word you want to use.
So Claudia, would you say, because I mean, this would be a cool project we could work on together, I think.
Okay.
But I'm trying to work on a blueprint, right? I'm trying to work like on, it's not concrete, but I got to believe there's certain maybe formulas or a framework that like at 100 employees, you need this. At 250, you need this. At 500 employees, you should have this, or be thinking of, right? Like, I think that would also help. Right, a lot of the smaller businesses, because again, the better we level up the smaller businesses, the more geared they'll be ready, and the fragmentation gets eliminated. It's very fragmented, right? You got the big, large enterprise cleaning companies, and then you got the small cleaning companies.
Yes.
Like, have you put that together before, or do you have some examples of that?
Oh yeah, there definitely are standards out there, and what makes it a little bit different in the BSC world is because recruiting is such a fundamental job that usually falls under HR, but in this industry it falls under operations. So sometimes, especially for larger BSCs, the recruiting is a regional position and it doesn't fall under headquarters. But I think that usually your HR generalist is one, and then your recruiter follows shortly after that. So you usually have at least two in that position for about 100 employees. You don't typically see less than that at 100 employees. But I've seen BSCs hold on to that for up to 200-300 employees. Usually those roles aren't able, if you just have a recruiter and you just have a generalist, you don't have somebody who's helpful for like, how do we deal with some of these employee relations issues? And those in this industry fall onto your regional, your site managers. So we site managers doing a ton of HR, whereas in other industries you don't normally see that. So
is that good or bad? Or what do you think? Is that that's what you're saying, is you should be thinking of that strategic HR person now, right? Not putting it on the supervisor.
In this industry, the supervisor is the one that only sees them, right? So a lot of times they don't come back to the home office. They're not actually there. They don't have the same typical workplace connections to HR that other industries have. That's why I think this supervisory training, or having somebody who is culturally out there and in the field. So normally in a normal industry, you have one HR person for every 50 to 100 employees. So after 150, you get 2 HR people. After 250, you have 3 HR people. After 350, you have 4 HR people. Like that's typically how business grows.
Okay, and that makes sense, Claudia, because like you're saying, the interaction, you can only interact with so many people, right? So like if you are at 2 with 500 employees, like how are you actually building relationships then? You're not.
Well, and the other thing is that oftentimes those people are not the relationship type of people, and they're not actually ever interacting with HR because they are on site, right?
Yeah.
So they're working on their facilities. They're not actually, unless they're coming to pick up a paycheck or to put in a leave request. Again, that's all very transactional. So I would like to see somebody at leadership really thinking of employees and going out and being that personal connection. But that's sort of a leap over what normally you see in a typical industry or a typical business.
Okay, but that could be a way for everybody who's listening, right? Like that's a way to stand out.
Oh,
Offer
absolutely.
that, do that,
Yeah.
implement that into your system. Because if many aren't doing it, from your experience, like that's something you can stand out with. So I think that's a big takeaway for sure. Is as you're talking, I'm thinking of like the strategy component, because we talk about it so much, right? Even us in our business is like, what else can we do? What else? And it's like you have to actually spend time. You can't just throw it on the whiteboard, and
No.
then you just don't follow up and execute. We're guilty of that all the time.
The strategy around your people development, right? Some of the most successful ones I've seen are people who were part of the janitorial or cleaning custodial team. They put them through college. They got a degree in HR. They know those people, and then they kind of grow up. Or you see that they're just the relationship type. Let's get them some training. Let's get them to learn, what is their interest, and connecting those dots. It doesn't have to be that, though. It just has to be somebody who's passionate about people, who just love people, and want to prepare those organizations for the future.
So, Claudia, talk to us about things that in the industry. I mean, you already actually shared a few, some good stats, but like what other stats should we be aware of or knowledgeable of, especially as BSCs or cleaning company owners?
So, I mean, I think that the biggest ones are the unemployment statistics that we've seen in the States. And I think that realizing that those unemployment levels right now, we're at 3.6%, and that's an average. So in a lot of geographies, especially like the South and West, those states, we're at like 1.8, 2.0 unemployment rates. And those statistics are just going to continue. So I think that's a very important realization that people have to have. The other thing is that our legal immigration, we're down by 1 million since pre-COVID. And even though we've created allotments for more pathways for legal immigration to come into some of these entry-level positions, they're not being filled. I think we have an allotment of maybe 450,000 workers coming in this year, legal resettlements, refugee resettlements, but we still only have like 60 or 80,000 that have actually been filled. And where I live, upstate New York, these are the people that are keeping these cities, these Rust Belt cities alive.
Yeah.
So think
Claudia, how do we reach? Because I could talk about this topic all day too. I mean, coming from immigrant father, right? Is how do, and again, it's not that they're coming here to take work, right? In my opinion, it's they want to work, but like
there seems to be enough work for everybody. I mean, looking at all these unemployment rates, there's enough for everybody. Yeah.
So do you have advice or what can we do to make those connections, or what's the right path to take in our local cities? Like here, I'm in Chicago, so like who are you supposed to reach out to or connect to about that? Because I think it's could be a good source.
What I would do is I would reach out to your U.S. member of Congress that represents your district and ask them whether or not there are resettlement NGOs or resettlement groups that exist within your marketplace. In Chicago, I'm sure they've got refugee resettlement programs.
I've seen it. Oh, yeah.
So those are
So
the
is that what it's called? Resettlement group? Is that what?
refugee resettlement agencies.
Okay.
And so usually those are nonprofits, and they partner with they all come through the State Department. So they're all through the State Department, but then they get sort of handed out to resettlement programs. A lot of churches and religious institutions do resettlement, but we have clients who literally are waiting for them when they get off of the plane and literally saying, we are here. And I've got a client here, great company, and they've resettled. And look, it's not without its challenges, because
No, for sure. There's challenges. Yeah.
and some of them come with their own biases and hatreds, and they don't even share a language. But this company here in Syracuse called United Radio, they have Hmong, they have Eastern European, they have Rwandan, they have Sudanese, they have South American, like just every type of refugee population. They don't even speak the language, but they will hire a cadre of 4 or 5, one person who speaks English well, and the rest to work as a team to get them settled. And then they bring in, bring me your friends, bring your family, who else is coming, let's get them jobs, let's create pathways. Like, they're all about creating those opportunities, even if they're just a stepping stone, just to get them in the door.
I feel like that, like, I like how you say it too, creating a pathway. Like, it's a long play, right? Like, if you are, we're in this business to be in the business for a while.
Yep.
Creating that pathway where, let's say, it takes 6 months to come to reality, but once you got it, right? Like, you turn the faucet on in the process. Like, again, if you have a good culture, you have the foundational piece, that could be a good percentage of workforce for you, right? Especially if you're scaling.
And this client that I'm working with, their core value, one of their core values that they've had since they just turned 100. One of the core
Jesus.
values is we have a responsibility to create a family and improve the communities where we live. I mean, It's like they're all about people and community, even though they don't even, they have conflict. They have to be prepared for conflict. You're going to require a really strong HR person in that role to help really navigate the conflict and check in with those sort of cultural liaisons. But and you see the same thing with vets. You see the same thing with we have a local county prison, and they know this person needs to not be here. This person needs a job. And they get them a job, and then they find them some form of housing or whatever service. These are long games. It's not.
This is a long game.
This is not easy stuff. But I'll tell you, once you get them, you won't lose them. They will not lose you.
They won't. Yeah, no. We have a couple right now. We have some great, and it's awesome because, like, a couple of that. One, her name is Dora. She comes to mind. She's one of our supervisors. But Claudia, I didn't realize, because again, she's quiet. She's been with us for more than a few years. And then my mom is like, Rick, she got she has a degree in accounting, from back where I'm like, what is she doing just as a cleaning technician? I'm like, let's get her in a supervisor role. Yeah. And she didn't speak up because she was just happy with the job that she already had, so that's another, again, always a learning lesson is engage. You said it earlier in the conversation, is always be engaging with your staff. You don't know what you have in front of you or internally. So, big advocate of promoting from within, which many people are, and I love it.
One thing on that I also want to say is that a lot of employees, they love the opportunity to grow from within, and they want to know what their pathway is. But a lot of employees want to be okay doing what they're doing.
Correct. Yeah.
They don't want to grow, and celebrate that. Make that okay.
No,
they've got it figured out. They've got their life figured out. Make that okay. Don't push them into roles that they don't be in.
I was forcing somebody at one point a few years ago. I was like, this person is management material. They're awesome. It's a great person, but they're like, no, I'm good. I'm happy. Like, let me just, I don't want to manage anybody. I was like, okay. Yeah. So here, Claudia, as we come to an end here, I like, to ask some personal stuff too, but we'll end first with, for the people in the industry, anything that we didn't talk about, is there a takeaway you want them to have, or something that you want to add to this conversation that that our industry is aware of or is thinking of it today and in the future?
Absolutely, and you know what? The good thing is, I think that they're already thinking about this. But I think the most important thing is our churn and burn days are over. It's not going back to normal. This is normal, and it's just going to get tighter. And those that are passionate like you are, loving your employees like you do, really thinking about this, being interested in even having an HR person on your podcast. I mean, that's where a lot of great mojo goes to die. So being willing to have me on here, this is gonna be critical for folks going forward. And HR in the past has always been viewed as a cost center. And I think that now people need to view HR as a critical strategic resource. If you can find an HR person, because we're all quitting, because we're all burned out. But
it's Claudia. I look at it as an investment. Right?
Yeah.
It's an investment because, again, if you're all taking care of, you as a leader or as a C-level exec can work on the business, right? Because you already know if you're working on and thinking ahead, over the corner, around the corner, but you can't do that if you're having to worry about behind you and the people and in your surroundings. So
Absolutely.
all right. So on a personal level, we've been talking nonstop business. I know you have a funny story to share or just personal achievements. Talk about personal level. What does Claudia do on the off time? What's something that you've done that people may not know about? Or again, I want people after this episode is done, is if they reach out to you to connect. Again, HR is an HR. They're going to connect with you for HR related. But tell us something personal so they can connect with you on a personal level.
So something personal. I am absolutely very goofy, and anybody who's been at the SCA knows that about me. I think you asked me, I had a really hard time coming up with what is something that somebody doesn't know. I don't know whether it's goofy, but I've been known to just fly to places and hire guides and fly to far-flung places and go fishing by myself. I flew into Alaska and did that. I race sailboats. I've got 2 kiddos. I don't know.
Listen to what you said, so you know. You are an HR people person, but yet some of the fun stuff you like to do is with 0 people, and you get out there by yourself.
Okay, so that I did that, but if I'm left by myself for more than 2 days, I'm afraid I'll die. So, honest to God, if I'm left alone for if by day 3, I'm convinced I'll just disappear off the face of the planet. So, it's not good to leave me alone. I have no introversion. On the Myers-Briggs score, the DISC score, it's 1 out of 100. I'm 100 from. So yeah, don't leave me alone. Don't leave me alone. But I did do that one thing, and maybe I remember it because I did that one thing.
There you go. Well, Claudia.
What about you?
Me? Personal level?
Yes.
It's personal, but I share it with everybody. But I enjoy running. As of late, I have never done it before. Never ran. But everybody's like, Rick, why do you share your morning runs? Because if you follow me, I do my morning runs all the time. But it's the most zen moment for me. I'm by myself. I got my music. Every time I try to run a little bit further, so I challenge myself. It's there's moments where I'm I can't breathe. My back hurts. I gotta stop. Why am I doing this to myself? But I go into every single one because I have this concept in my head where I want to think. I don't want to think before I do it, but when I run, I think of a word. And I think of something in the moment that's happened that previous week or that I just had encountered, and I share it. And I've been realizing the more I share, Claudia, the better I feel and the more confident I am in myself. Again, good or bad, I've done some dumb things in my life. I will always do dumb things. That's okay, right? And it's okay. You're not always 100%. You're not going to be at the top of your game, but in this podcast, Claudia, too, I get to know you. We've met many times and we've talked, but I know more about you now than I did every single time we spoke. So, and people will know more about you now too. So this is why we do what we're doing here, right? So I wanted to say cheers to you.
And what was your word for running today? Because I have a word for today.
So no, today I didn't do one. I do once a week. I know I get yelled at. One of my guys on my team is like, Rick, You do one a week. Come on. Get better than that. No, the last one, what was it? Integrity was one, but grit, like the definition of grit. Like in my head, I kept thinking about what does grit mean.
Yeah.
And I just elaborate, right? I do a FaceTime and I record it. So again, think about that, Claudia. You should FaceTime. I've learned as I shared it with some people, like if you record yourself talking, yes, you're talking to yourself, you see yourself, but like, and you step away and you listen to it again.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to hear you talk. And when you're like free form, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no script, no nothing. And you learn a little bit about yourself when you listen to those. So I would advise for those of you out there, join me on a morning run.
Awesome. Well, and my words for the last couple of weeks are forgiveness and grace. So I'll now be thinking about grit and what was the other one? Integrity. Awesome.
All right. Well,
Thank you,
everybody.
Rick. I've so enjoyed this. This is so
awesome.
fun.
Thank you. Well, normally what we do too, Claudia, everybody that wants to get in touch with you, we in the YouTube posting, because we post this on our YouTube channel, we're going to have your LinkedIn. We're going to have the Affinity Group website, which I know is going to change to the Workplace Advisors.
Yes.
If people want to get a hold of you, I'm sure you're open to it. They'll reach out to you.
Absolutely.
Everybody needs an HR person, like they need a cleaner, a lawyer, a barber, a mechanic. I highly advise it. So again, thank you, Claudia.
Things up.
Thank you so much for joining me. Guys, thanks for tuning in and listening to another episode of Cleaning and Cocktails. Until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
And we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds great. Thank you.